Hi, I'm Dr. Will Lane. I want to dive in further to the glycemic index now that you've been introduced to it. Let's look into how we can use it to make better food choices to help your diet become even healthier. So as we look at specific examples, foods that you may be used to eating, bagels, white bread, and even whole wheat bread, look at their glycemic index, 60s to 70s. Now let's see what better choices we can make. Dense pumpernickel bread, sprouted grain bread, even a whole grain English muffin, much lower, getting close to half of the glycemic index. So when you're looking for that toast in the morning or the bread to use on your sandwich, that simple switch in your choice can make a big difference in the effect of your blood sugar and thus your insulin level. Now, one note on the sprouted grain bread, this is probably the primary bread that I use, but when you first start using it, I suggest that you toast it. It does have a different consistency, and when you toast it, I think it's a little bit more tolerable at the beginning until you get used to it. So that's one little tip I would give. Now look at your breakfast morning cereals. When I see people that are struggling losing weight and they just can't figure out why, I often find that they're eating a lot of cereal. And look at the glycemic index of Cheerios, Corn Flakes, Rice Krispies is very high in the 80s. Now look at other choices you can make. All bran, oat bran, and my favorite is steel cut oatmeal at 42, half of the glycemic index. These foods will fill you up, have a much better effect on your blood sugar. So start thinking about how you can make some changes to your morning routine that will also really affect your blood sugar during the morning. And I find people are often crashing energy level wise 2-3 hours after they eat breakfast, and I think it's because their blood sugar has spiked and then dropped low. So keeping that sugar steady is going to make a big difference in your energy level throughout the morning. So fruit, look at raisins, mangoes, bananas. Still, even though it's a little bit higher than the glycemic index, this is much lower than your breads and cereals. So not altogether a horrible choice, but there are other fruits that are lower on the glycemic index. Cherries, strawberries, apples, pears are again almost half of the glycemic index. So again, when you choose your fruits, perhaps make some different choices or different combinations that are going to keep your blood sugar a little bit lower. Mashed potatoes, rice cakes, pretzels, donuts. This is actually one of my favorite examples because how many dieters struggle by eating rice cakes and pretzels, thinking they've made a great choice, but the glycemic index of those things is actually higher than some donuts. Now, instead, if you have an almond, look at that low glycemic index of 15, and the almonds actually have protein and fiber as well. Instead of mashed potatoes, try a sweet potato. And don't let the name fool you. It actually has a lower glycemic index than regular white potatoes, and it has really good antioxidants as well. Now, for people that just need a little bit of dessert after their meal, dark chocolate, especially when it's even a higher percentage than 70%, has a fairly low glycemic index. It does have a decent amount of fat, so you don't do too much of it, but it can actually be a fairly good choice. So we're talking about eating lots of vegetables, berries, fruits in your diet to try to help keep your blood sugar steady. And I go back to something we talked about on the Mediterranean diet, which is think like a bacteria. So eat foods from the border of the grocery store. Avoid things that are packaged, that are processed. Eat foods with one ingredient, which is the fruit, the vegetable, whole grains. That's what's going to try to usually keep your sugar level steady. Avoid artificial sweeteners. I think this is a common trap that people get into. They see, well, this food item has no sugar, minimal calories because it's sweetened with an artificial sweetener. It must be okay. But unfortunately, when they do studies, these artificial sweeteners have at least the same metabolic effect as a sugar equivalent, and maybe even worse. And I feel that's because your body doesn't really know how to metabolize or use the artificial sweetener, so it causes more havoc inside. And you really are often better off with a little bit of regular sugar that your body is used to and knows how to metabolize. So avoid the artificial sweeteners that are actually going to probably cause more harm than just plain sugar. So as you'll notice on that glycemic index examples we went through, that you want to limit flour in your diet. And this is an important concept. Try to give you certain concepts so you don't have to carry this index around with you everywhere. But as a general rule, if you minimize the flour in your diet, you're going to have a much lower glycemic index food choices. So even whole wheat flour, as we saw in the glycemic index, unfortunately is going to raise your sugar level. And that's because flour is what's left of the whole grain once it's been stripped of its husk, its oil, and all you have left is a simple carbohydrate. So after you eat that, your body quickly digests that flour product, and you get a spike in your sugar and thus your insulin level. So if you can eat a whole grain, it's sort of an extended release carbohydrate. It takes a while for your body to break down, so you get a slow release of sugar in your bloodstream and thus a slow release of insulin. So this Mediterranean anti-inflammatory diet that we've discussed, one of the reasons that it is so good for your health is it is, by nature, a low glycemic index diet. By eating primarily vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, it will help keep your sugar level steady. So I think this is one of the key top 3 reasons why I love the Mediterranean diet. People ask, fruits are a big part of the Mediterranean diet. Aren't they going to raise my blood sugar? Well, as I showed you, certain fruits are a little bit higher on the glycemic index, like bananas and oranges and mangoes, sort of your citrus fruits. But even those fruits higher than the glycemic index are still much lower than your breads and cereals. But when making choices, there are fruits that are low in the glycemic index that have great antioxidants. And I love berries, apples, pears, peaches. I would say every morning I try to have several servings of berries in my diet. And as a snack during the day, I love an apple because an apple, again, is low in the glycemic index and it's very good antioxidants. It's very inexpensive and easy to take with me. So think about, again, having lots of fruits, but choose fruits in general that are going to be lower on the glycemic index. One of the key concepts in using this is that look at the glycemic index of the whole meal. So it's not just each individual component, but how you combine foods can have a big effect on how that meal affects your sugar and thus your insulin level. So let's say you're going to have something a little bit higher than glycemic index. Let's say you feel like having an orange. Well, combine it with something low in the glycemic index, let's say spinach, and then when you eat it, it will sort of dilute the concentration of sugar, and foods that are also high in either protein or fiber delay the emptying of the foods in the stomach into the intestine, and the effect of that will be you have a slower rise in your blood sugar and less of a release of insulin. So look at the combination of foods, how you combine things using the glycemic index will allow you to eat some of the foods higher in the index in a way that's going to have less of a deleterious effect on your blood sugar level. Another key point, again, is going into the whole grains. And examples of this, and we'll give you recipes and walk you through them, are whole grains like quinoa, barley, brown rice, steel-cut oatmeal. And these are not only lower than glycemic index, but they have a lot of fiber. And certain grains like quinoa are actually a full protein source as well. And so they will help keep you full so you don't get that carbohydrate craving a couple hours after you eat, and will then also keep your sugar level steady. What I find is when people have, let's say, a high glycemic index cereal in the morning, then they get really tired around 10 o'clock because their blood sugar has then bottomed out. And they go for eating, again, a high carbohydrate, high glycemic index snack at that time to get their energy level up. If you can eat something in the morning time or throughout the day that keeps your sugar level steady, you should hopefully avoid those peaks and valleys of your blood sugar that really affect your energy. Another key thing is that certain items like vinegar, olive oil, and things high in fiber, again, slow down the emptying of your stomach. So by having that slower release, you will get a slower digestion of the foods and a slower rise of sugar in your bloodstream. I love ground flax seeds. I think they are an excellent source of antioxidants, something called ligands, and a great source of soluble fiber. They're also very inexpensive. If you buy the whole flax seeds, a couple of dollars can actually last you a couple months. Grind it in a coffee grinder and just use that grinder for flax seeds. and store whatever you ground in an airtight container in the refrigerator. Use it within a couple days to a week, but put 1 to 2 tablespoons into your oatmeal, into your applesauce, your yogurt, your smoothies. And that ground flaxseed, which kind of looks like sawdust, is going to give you a great source of fiber, help slow down the emptying of your stomach, and keep the glycemic index of your meal even lower. So that simple addition can have multiple health benefits to your diet. Pasta. I grew up in a time where sometimes the whole meal would just be a big plate of pasta, and we want to try to get away from that. Now, pasta by itself isn't great, but if you do whole wheat pasta, cook it al dente, combine it with vegetables and perhaps a piece of fish, the effect of it on your blood sugar won't be too bad. The biggest mistake people make is doing a large amount, and a serving should be about a half a cup or 1 hand cup of cooked pasta. By cooking it al dente, which means it's going to be firm, it's going to take a little bit longer for your body to digest, so it's slow rising in blood sugar. And again, things like olive oil or vinegar will actually slow down its emptying from your stomach and the digestive process. So that's why if you have a really good tomato sauce that has olive oil in it, or you have a pasta salad with vinegar, those are good things that will lower the glycemic index effect of that pasta for you. One last concept is your emotional state when you eat, I think, has a big effect on how your body digests food and the effect of the food on your body. And I think in eating, especially at work, at lunchtime, snacks, people are just looking at it as a quick way to satisfy their hunger. They eat while they're standing, they eat while they're working, they are stressed while they're eating, they're watching disturbing news on TV, and that is not good for how your body is going to utilize food. So think about, even for 10 minutes, changing the environment in which you eat. So try listening to some nice music when you eat. Try having a positive conversation about things that make you happy. And what this does is, not only is it more enjoyable, but by going away from your fight or flight state, it will actually increase blood flow to your intestines and aid in proper digestion. So think about, as a family, as someone at work, whatever you can do to make it more enjoyable will allow your body to use the food in the right way and get the true benefit from that food. So I hope that's helpful. Enjoy learning how to use the glycemic index based on your culture, the type of food you like, and dive into it. Share with us what you find works for you, but use this tool to help you with your energy, perhaps weight loss goals, building muscle, and your overall health. Have a great day.